For the pleasure of the Lordships, Shri Radha Vallabha, Shri Gaurnitai, Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra, Shri Prabhupada, and all the assembled devotees. Sankirtan score report for Friday, 9th of June. Books distributed. Crossways team, 1 small, 1 medium, 2 big, for 2.75 book points. Preaching score Radha Chaiba, 109 guests for 1,310 Lakshmi points. Gopal's 229 guests for 2,745 Lakshmi points. And Crossways 422 guests for 3,548 Lakshmi points. Lakshmi Liberated Crossways team, books 50, Temple Shop 344, and member service is 2,750 Lakshmi points. That gives the daily total of 3,144 and the weekly total of 18,432 Lakshmi points. Sankirtan Yagya ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kebala Bhakti Sadma Shri Guru Bandhamoy Sabadana Ote Bandha Jahara Prasade Vai Ye Baba Toriya Jai Jahara Jahara Prasade Vai Ye Baba Toriya Jai Jai Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te Krishna Prapti Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te Krishna Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Koriya Vakya Guru Mukha Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Koriya Vakya Guru Mukha Arana Koriya Mane Asa Arana Koriya Arana Koriya Mane Asa Shri Guru Charane Rate Yehi Se Utama Gati Shri Guru Charane Shri Guru Charane Rate Yehi Se Utama Gati Shri Guru Jai Prasada Pura Sarma Asa Jai Prasada Pura Sarma Asa Jai Prasada चकुरा न दिलो दे जन्म जान में प्रभु से चकुरा चकुरा न दिलो दे जन्म जान में प्रभु से चकुरा न दिलो दे देव ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशता देव ज्ञान देव ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशता देव ज्ञान प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ वैते अभिजावे न सयते प्रेम भक्ति प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ वैते अभिजावे न सयते प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ वैते देगा जहर तोरेता देगा देगा जहर तोरेता देगा श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आत्मा नर बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adamada Narabandhu Shri Guru Karuna Lokona Lokera Jivana Lokona Lokonath Lokera Jivana Lokona Ha Prabhu karo daya de hamare pad chaya Ha Prabhu karo daya de hamare pad chaya Ha Prabhu karo Evdedas Gose Tribhuvana Evdedas Evdedas Gose Tribhuvana Evdedas Ha Prabhu karo daya de hamare pad chaya Oh, Prabhu karo daya de hamare pada chaya Ha Prabhu karo daya de hamare pada chaya Prabhu Evdedas Gose Tribhuvana Evdedas Prabhupada Pachita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai 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 Gurudev 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 Jai Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Nama Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesa Sunyavadi Vasachadi Satarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Jaya Shri Krishna Jaya Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Jaya Shri Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Jaya Shri Krishna Gaura Bhaktivedanta Jaya Go Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Netai Gaur Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Netai Gaur Hari Bo Jai Jagannatha Jagannatha Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Radha Vallabha Radha Vallabha Sri Radha Jaya Radha Jaya Radha Vallabha Radha Vallabha Sri Radha Jaya Radha Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai 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 Vishnu Pada Brahma Sabrikaji Kristo Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Srila Prabhupada Maharaj ki Srila Prabhupada Guru Puja ki Jai Vishnu Pada Brahma Sabrikaji Kristo Śrīmad Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada ki Ananda Koti Vaishnava ki Vaishnavacharya Vrinda ki Navacharya Das Thakur ki Prem Sikho Sikhi Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Siddhita Gadadhar Saraswati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyamkunda Radhakunda Girija Pradhan ki Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Shri Mathura Dham ki Shri Mayapur Navadip Dham ki Shri Purushottam Kshetra Jagannathpuri Dham ki Ganga Mai Jamna Maiya ki Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharani ki Hari Rama Sankirtan ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki Shri Shri Gaunitai ki Shri Shri Jagannath Balaram Subhadra Maiya ki Shri Shri Radha Vallabha ki Melbourne Mahaprabhu Mandir ki Srila Prabhupada Transcendental Book Distribution ki Melbourne Mahaprabhu Mandir ki Joy Nitai Gopi Manande, all glories to Samal devotees, all glories to Samal devotees, all glories to Samal devotees, all glory Guru and Gauranga.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gora Bhaktivedanta Chaitanya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Thank you. Jai Vishnu Bal Pranam Sa Prabhupada Shtotra Śrīmad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki. Nithai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we are reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 6. Prahlad instructs his demoniac schoolmates, text number 9. Ko griheshu puman saktam atmanam ajitendriyaha sneha pashayadridhair baddham utsaheta vimochitum. Ko griheshu puman saktam atmanam ajitendriyaha sneha pashayadridhair baddham utsaheta vimochitum. Ko griheshu puman saktam atmanam ajitendriyaha sneha pashayadridhair baddham utsaheta vimochitum. Ladies, this side. Shupaman saktam pashayadridhair baddham Vaishnavis. Utsaheta vimoshitam. Word for word, please repeat. Kaha, what? Griheshu, to household life. Puman, man. Saktam, very much attached. Atmanam, his own self, the soul. Ajita Indriyaha, who has not conquered the senses. Sneha Pashai, by the ropes of affection. Hridai, very strong. Badham, bound hand and foot. Utsaheta, is able. Vimochitum, to liberate from material bondage. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. What person too attached to household life, due to being unable to control his senses, can liberate himself? An attached householder is bound very strongly by ropes of affection for his family, in brackets, wife, children, and other relatives. Purport. Prahlad Maharaj's first proposal was Kaumara Acharet Pragyo Dharman Bhagavata Iha. Quote, one who is sufficiently intelligent should use the human form of body from the very beginning of life, in other words, from the tender age of childhood, to practice the activities of devotional service, giving up all other engagements. End quote. Dharman Bhagavatan means the religious principle of reviving our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For this purpose, Krishna personally advises, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Give up all other duties and surrender unto me. While in the material world we manufacture so many duties in the name of so many isms, but our actual duty is to free ourselves from the cycle of birth, death, old age and disease. For this purpose, one must first be liberated from material bondage and especially from household life. Household life is actually a kind of license for a materially attached person by which to enjoy sense gratification under regulative principles. Otherwise, there is no need for entering household life. Before entering household life, one should be trained as a brahmachari, living under the care of the guru, whose place is known as the Gurukul. Brahmachari Gurukule Vasandanto Gurorhitam, Bhagavatam 7.12.1. From the very beginning, a brahmachari is trained to sacrifice everything for the benefit of the guru. A brahmachari is advised to go begging alms door to door, addressing all women as mother, and whatever he collects goes to the benefit of the guru. In this way, he learns how to control his senses and sacrifices everything for the guru. When he is fully trained, if he likes, he is allowed to marry. Thus, he is not an ordinary grihastha who has learned only how to satisfy his senses. A trained grihastha can gradually give up household life and go to the forest to become increasingly enlightened in spiritual life and at last take sannyas. Prahlad Maharaj explained to his father that to be freed from all material anxieties, one should go to the forest. Hitvatma patam griha anda kupam. One should give up his household life, which is a place for going further and further into the darkest regions of material existence. The first advice, therefore, is that one must give up household life, griham anda kupam. However, if one prefers to remain in the dark well of household life because of uncontrolled senses, he becomes increasingly entangled by the ropes of affection for his wife, children, servants, house, money, and so on. Such a person cannot attain liberation from material bondage. Therefore, children should be taught from the very beginning of life to be first-class brahmacharis. Then it will be possible for them to give up household life in the future. To return home back to Godhead, one must be completely free from material attachment. Therefore, Bhakti Yoga means Vairagya Vidya, the art that can help one develop a distaste for material enjoyment. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojata Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayad Ahaitukam. Quote, by rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. End quote. Bhagavatam 127. If one engages in devotional service from the beginning of life, he easily attains Vairagya Vidya or Asakti, detachment, and becomes Jitendriya, the controller of his senses. One who perfectly engages in devotional service is therefore called Goswami or Swami, master of the senses. Unless one is master of the senses, he should not accept the renounced order of life, sannyas. A strong inclination for sense enjoyment is the cause of the material body. Without full knowledge, one cannot be unattached to material enjoyment. But as long as one is not in that position, one is not fit to return home back to Godhead. What a challenging verse to speak on, for me at least. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Prahlad Maharaj ki Jai. So here Prahlad Maharaj is instructing his schoolmates who are all from demoniac families and they are demoniac themselves. Sorry. So these are very powerful instructions of Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto. And in this context he's talking about how rare the human form of life is and how short it is. And people who are materialistic, who are blind to Krishna consciousness, they waste their life in frivolous activities. And so in the previous text, Prahlad Maharaj has been explaining that how the first 10 years of one's life are wasted just as a baby or growing up. So we have experience of very young children. Of course here there's some exceptions are there in this room. How old are you? You're 10. Wow, amazing. And you? 11. I know you both for some time. Amazing devotees. So, but most kids, they're totally, as we are growing up, at least for myself, the first 10 years, from a spiritual perspective, was a total waste. There's no idea, just mucking around. And then the next 10 years are involved in sports. For boys, it's mainly, engaged in sports and chasing girls once we hit puberty. And then Prahlad Maharaj describes that the last 20 years of one's life are wasted in old age. So in old age, one becomes very weak, as described in the previous text. That is the dwindling embarrassment of old age. So as one's body becomes weak, then it's very hard to do things and focus on bhakti because the body is causing so much pain. Everything is aching or things are breaking apart, right? So that in old age, a lot of time goes in the maintenance of the body. So not a lot of time left for Krishna consciousness. And then the in-between time, people sleep a lot. People love sleeping. So sometimes at my work, I ask them, so what's the plan for the weekend? They say, I'm going to sleep. My plan is Friday night sleep till Saturday 1 or 2, then get up and go and party in the evening. So a lot of people waste their time sleeping. 12, here is mentioned 12 hours. So if one sleeps 12 hours a day, pretty much half the life is wasted in sleeping. Out of 24 hours, 12 hours are gone in sleeping. So you only have 12 hours left. And in those 12 hours, one has to also go to work, make a living, and then cook something, eat something, maybe do some exercise, People watch TV, and then in that way the whole life is gone. Practically there's no time for Krishna consciousness. And here Prahlad Maharaj is saying one who is in householder life, for them it's even harder, because once they get into householder life, they are so entangled in the complexities of household life. For such a person, what hope is there of liberating themselves if they can't control their senses? So most people are ajitendriya, right? They are unable to control their senses. And Krishna talks about how the senses, we have the 6 senses, the mind, sight, smell, touch, taste, and so on. So each of the senses are strongly attached to their sense objects, and it's very difficult to control them. And the mind just follows them wherever the sense pulls them. So in Bhagavad Gita there's the famous artwork in which there's the chariot, there's the soul sitting on a chariot, the passenger sitting on a chariot, and each of the horses are going in different directions. So that is our state, in which all the senses are pulling us in different directions. It's like a man who has 5 wives, and each wife is pulling him in different directions. So that is our condition. But as Prahlad Maharaj is mentioned in the first verse, Kaumara acharet pragyo dharman bhagavata iha, that one has to use one's human form of life for dharma, right? For dharman bhagavata iha, for cultivating devotional service. The one who is sufficiently intelligent. So this is a sign of intelligence. People think we are intelligent if they know some IT, or they can write some code. People think they're very smart. They can be materially successful, get it all together. Then they think they're very intelligent. But actually, real intelligence, the sign of real intelligence is that one engages in the activities of devotional service. Right? That's a sign of real intelligence. That's right, Sumedasa. So as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, and as quoted here, Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayashyami ma suchaha. That give up all varieties of religion and surrender unto me. So the goal of life is to surrender to Krishna. That is the only goal of our existence. Of all species of life, that's the goal. And the human form of life is very rarely attained. As mentioned in the first verse, Durlabham Manusham Janma. Right? It is human form of life is very rare. And we take it for granted. And even Narottam Das Thakur in his prayer, Dainya Bodhika, so in the first verse it says, Hari Hari Bifale Janma Goainu Manushya Janma Paya Radha Krishna Na Bhajiya. Right? Janiya Shuniya Bishakhainu. So Narottam Das Thakur says, O Lord Hari, of course, it's a prayer out of great humility. This is our condition. I have spent my life uselessly, having obtained a human birth, and having not worshipped Radha and Krishna, I have knowingly drunk poison. So, not taking up to bhakti or Krishna consciousness is like the drinking of poison, knowingly. So, the human form of life is meant for developing love for Krishna and engaging in loving devotional service. Selfless devotional service. That's the goal of the human form of life. To worship Radha and Krishna. So Radha Ballabha, Prabhupada has established Radha Ballabha for the residents of Melbourne. He has established a place of pilgrimage for the residents of Melbourne to come here and engage in Radha Ballabha's service. directly or indirectly, right? There's so many. Radha Ballabha has orchestrated so many services in Melbourne. Everything that is happening is an expansion from this temple. Even all the outreach activities, preaching happening, is ultimately it's in the service of Radha Ballabha. So that's the goal of the human form of life. And most people, as Prahlad Maharaj is mentioning here, they uselessly waste their life. The entire human form of life is wasted, which is, very rarely obtained. Durlabham manasa janma. So human form of life is rarely obtained because there's 8.4 million species of life, and the human beings are only 400k or 400,000. And one has to go through the evolution of consciousness from these different life forms, starting from the aquatics and so on and so forth, coming to the human form of life. And we get the human form of life after a very long time of transmigrating, taking birth and dying in different life forms. And when we get it, it's just wasted. It's a total waste of human form of life. It's like people say, okay, now, sometimes people lament, oh, I didn't invest in property. There was a boom time from 2012 or 2014 to 2018. Oh, I'm lamenting. They're lamenting, oh, we didn't invest. We wasted that time. We had an opportunity. We were sitting on the sidelines, sitting on the fence. So in the same way, we've got the human form of life, but we are sitting on the fence. We're sitting on the sidelines, not engaging in Krishna consciousness, which is our natural position. Jivera Swarup Hoye, Krishnera Nitya Das. This is the natural position of the living entity, is to serve Krishna. And the unnatural position is to serve one's senses. And in doing so, we become frustrated and miserable. So the human form of life, that's the main purpose. And how do we surrender to Krishna? In the Hari Bhakti Vilas, it's mentioned, Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam rakshishyati vishvaso goptritve varanam tatha atma nikshepa karpanye shadvidha sharanagati. So there's 6 aspects of surrender. Anukulyasya. So whatever is favorable to devotional service, we accept it. So it's very simple. That which is favorable to bhakti, we accept it. That which is unfavorable, we reject it. So that is the compass of a life. It's like if you're going somewhere, you need to have a compass. Like if you open Google Maps, there's a compass on it. It says north. It's facing north, but you can change it. So you need to know where you're going, and once you know where you're going, then we need to accept what is favorable to that path of bhakti, to our destination. So whether we are accepting a job, we're thinking, should I accept this job or that job? Should I get married to this one or that one? Or should I do this for my health or that? It's from the lens or perspective of what is favorable for my devotional service at this point in my life. With some, and we can seek some guidance from devotees if there's a lack of clarity in terms of what is favorable under these circumstances. And then similarly, what is unfavorable. So there's 4 broad activities that are unfavorable, as you know: eating meat, illicit sex, intoxication, and gambling. So these activities are highly unfavorable for bhakti. So we avoid these 4 sinful activities. And then Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu has given us various items of devotional service, and these are all favorable. And then when it comes to the nitty-gritty, the practical application, then maybe we have to consult with others if there's some doubt. Then the next item is Rakshishyati, right? Vishvasa. That having the faith that Krishna will protect me. So a devotee must be firmly convinced of Krishna and his protection. So that is faith, that is shelter. So one has to take shelter of Krishna's, basically have faith in the Lord, that the Lord will look after me. In the course of rendering devotional service, there are so many obstacles that come in life. Life throws challenges to everyone. So a devotee needs to be convinced that in this situation, Krishna will look after me, no matter how bad the crisis is. And that is firm faith. And this is an aspect of surrender. So Prahlad Maharaj had that firm faith. Hiranyakashipu had tortured Prahlad Maharaj in so many ways. Threw him down the cliff, threw him in a dungeon of snakes. What else did he do? Fire. Threw him in fire. Poison. Tried to poison him. So he employed all various means to kill him, maybe directly or indirectly. And then finally he even tried to do it himself, tried to kill Prahlad Maharaj. But Prahlad Maharaj had firm faith in the protection of the Lord. He just sat there and thought about Krishna. And then the Lord protected him every time. So that is firm faith in the Lord's protection. And we can see that in Prabhupada's life as well. That Prabhupada came to America at an advanced age with the firm faith in the Lord's protection. He had 2 strokes and he still carried on. Firm faith. And then the next item is maintenance. Maintenance. Yep. Rakshashyati vishvasha goptritve varanam tatha. And having firm faith that the Lord is one's maintainer and protector. So our maintenance is taken care by the Lord. Nitya nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam, what's that? Went completely blank. Nitya nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam, right? So Krishna is taking care of our maintenance. Krishna is taking care of all living entities' maintenance. The animals don't have to worry about their maintenance. Krishna has provided Om Purnam Ada Purnam Purnat Purnam Udachyate. So everything is there. Krishna has orchestrated everything perfectly. Krishna has made such arrangements that everyone is taken care of. So we see that Krishna has taken care of all animals by nature's arrangement. So they don't have to worry about food. And if they have to, it's because of us. We have destroyed their habitats. We have destroyed their natural environment, which Krishna has created for them. So Krishna takes care of everyone's maintenance, and even more so of his devotees. For one who surrenders unto Krishna, he here is saying, I take care, ma suchaha, do not fear. Krishna is saying, just surrender unto me, do not fear. It's like a child does not fear when he goes to his mother. So when the child is in trouble, even when we get in trouble, who do we go to? We go to our parents. At least we know our parents are there, even if everyone else backs off. But our parents will understand us. So we go to our parents because of that strong faith and surrender, right? Because we take shelter of our parents. So Krishna says, I'm your parent. In the Bhagavad Gita says, I'm the father, I'm the mother. So Krishna is the Supreme Father, and he takes care of his devotees, especially of his devotees. He takes care of everyone, but especially of his devotees, because his devotees are rendering service unto him, and then Krishna becomes obligated. So the Lord, it's not us, it's not by our efforts we are maintaining ourselves. It is actually Krishna maintaining us, whether we realize it or not, right? We might not realize it, but it's Krishna who is looking after, making sure we have a job, we have money to put food on the table, feed a family. So that is coming from Krishna. So if we recognize that, then that is to our credit. And then the next item is self-surrender. Remembering that one's activities and desires are not independent. The devotee is completely dependent on Krishna, and he acts and thinks of Krishna. And the devotee is meek and humble. So humility is a sign of a devotee. So a devotee is not proud of his or her achievements in bhakti, because as we've just discussed, ultimately it's Krishna who is doing everything. We are simply an instrument. Nimitta matrena bhavya savyasachi. So Krishna tells Arjun, be my instrument. Right? Just be my instrument and fight this war. So Lord Chaitanya has already predicted that my holy name will be spread in all towns and villages of the world. So that prediction has already been made. So it's our choice now whether we want to be part of it or not. It's going to happen. Either through us or through somebody else. So it's going to happen. So Mahaprabhu is saying, okay, now you be part of my mission and you can take the credit. So the Lord is so kind, He's like giving us the credit, but actually it's been done by the Lord. He has already predicted it. It's going to happen. In every town and village, Mahaprabhu's holy name will be heard. And people will eventually, and this is the first 10,000 years of the golden age, which we are in. We are in the early phases of the golden age. So there's so much more work to be done in spreading Mahaprabhu's movement. So if we are part of it, then our life is successful. And also Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, it's actually the three modes of nature that are orchestrating everything, and that we are not the doer. What's that verse? A famous verse. Kartahamiti manyate. Does anyone remember? You're not the doer. Any Bhakti Shastris here? Experts? So the human form of life is meant for that. And in the beginning, the human form of life is meant to surrender unto Krishna. And most people will be householders. Right? And householders beget children. Children don't fall out of the sky. So the kids come from the householder ashram. They come from the grihastha ashram. And the grihastha ashram generally is very entangling. So here it's mentioned as Andha Kupam. So here Prahlad Maharaj mentions in the 5th chapter. Tat sadhu manye asurya varya dehinam sada samudvigna dhyam asad grahat hitvatma patam griha anda kupam vanam gato yad dharim ashrayeta. So he says that, in household life, one is embarrassed by anxiety. because of having fallen in a dark well where there's no water but only suffering. So, household life is compared to a dark well, Griha Anda Kupam. It's a very interesting analogy given here, or an example of a dark well. Any idea why it says a dark well? Any guess? Can't get out, yeah. So a well is, generally wells are quite deep. Have you seen a well? All are from India. Have you seen wells, yeah, in villages? Snakes also live there. Huh? What? Dry well. Yeah, so you go in villages, there are these wells, right? And because there's no water lines, so people dig wells and then they take water. And generally those wells are quite deep. There's good water there. If there's, in the water table there's water, there will be. And if you enter the well, it's very difficult to come out unless there's a ladder. The surfaces of the walls are very slippery. And once you're in, it's more or less impossible to come out. So there are different kinds of wells. Some wells might be more comfortable than others. So as you're driving around, each house you can visualize as a well. Or as you're walking, each house is actually a well. You can see it as a dark, deep dark well. And a person, if there's some comforts in the well, then one is just simply happy in that well. So that's the problem with household life. It's yeah, you need someone to pull you out, the guru to pull you out, the Vaishnavas to pull you out. So household life is compared to a dark well. And most people will be householders because our propensity for sense gratification is very strong. Right? So man is attracted to woman and woman is attracted to man. That is the basis of material existence. And that's how kids come. So one thinks that I will go in household life and I will be very happy. So most people approach relationships that way. I'll get married to someone and will live happily ever after. So that illusion lasts for a very short time. And then, but actually one ends up struggling a lot. So one enters household life thinking I'll enjoy some sex life. But with that comes a lot of responsibility, right? So if man wants to accept a woman, then he has to provide. The job of a man is to provide for their family. It's not just enjoying. So most people today don't even have any conception of marriage. So the Kali Yuga is so fallen in the West. People just change their relationships, like they change houses or clothes, So 1 year you're with this one, next year you're with that one, and now you're with that one, then with this one. So they just keep changing relationships, trying to find happiness.
Like
Cars. Yeah. Bit more of cars you change only a few times in life. But that happens more. So, like one person told me, I asked her, how many relationships have you been in? She said 20. And short-term relationships. And she was only like less than 30 years old. So we can see how degraded Kali Yuga is, that people just keep changing relationships, trying to find happiness. But marriage life means responsibility. So there is responsibility involved in it. And one thinks there will be a lot of happiness in it, but there ends up being a lot of distress. So whether it's the kids causing problems, the distresses of earning a livelihood, right? So there's challenges with making a living. It's not easy. Then the kids are giving a hard time. Sometimes the family is giving a hard time, in-laws, this and that. There's legal complications. There's health problems, and it's just a struggle after struggle. And most people talking about Griha Medis here, don't get discouraged. There's hope. And they're so absorbed in their household life, whether with a partner or a wife, that's their entire focus. They go to work, and then drop the kids to school or kindergarten, then come to work, come back, pick the kids, take them for sports, and then watch some Netflix, and then sleep. Have a glass of wine and sleep. So and then on the weekend, catch up with friends, and then this is called love, friendship, and society. So most people are entangled in this. They're deeply entangled, and so that's why it's called a deep dark well. But the same household life can also be very liberating. And Prabhupada mentions that generally one should be prepared before one enters household life. It's like before you take a job, you have to be prepared, right? You just don't walk into an interview expecting you'll get it, unless you're very experienced and you know what you're talking about. But you have to be prepared. So same with household life also. One has to be prepared. So prepared not in the sense of just understanding male and female psychology, but being prepared in the sense that one needs to have a spirit of sacrifice and surrender. So that's why traditionally the brahmachari life is recommended. There's that famous verse from the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, again I think quoted by Prahlad Maharaj or Narad Muni. 7.12.1 Brahmachari gurukule vasandanto gurorhitam acharandasavan nicho guraush sudhrida sauhrida. This used to be one of my favorite verses before. I forgot. So Brahmachari Gurukule. That traditionally one begins one's life as a brahmachari in the varnashram, in the Vedic system. The intelligent householders, they would send their kids to a gurukul at the age of 5 onwards. So they can learn right from an early age about the importance of Krishna consciousness. So all the formative years of a child are in the early phases of life. That's where they learn everything, by observing others, and they absorb knowledge very quickly. So that training begins from a very young age. Brahmachari Gurukule Vasandanto Gurorhitam. So in the Brahmachari ashram, basically the objective is to learn how to control one's senses. That's one objective, right? So, and to learn also the spirit of sacrifice. So in the Brahmachari ashram, one is taught celibacy. So through celibacy, one learns how to control one's senses. So one in the Brahmachari ashram, one is not meant to have intimate connection or relationships with women. Everything is done at an arm's length distance. And a brahmachari learns to see all women as Mataji, or their mother. And the brahmachari also learns submission, because Gurukule, the brahmachari is living. Hare Krishna. Can we take her outside? Yeah, it's a bit disturbance. That's okay. So a brahmachari also learns submission, because living in the ashram of the guru. Just like here, there's an ashram. So in the ashram, the brahmacharis are rostered for various services. There's no choice. I mean, there is, usually they try to give services as per your nature, but generally you have to do the needful. That is expected. So when you join the ashram, it is more or less kind of given that you will do the needful, though we will try to engage you according to your propensity. And it's like being in a fire station. So when there's a fire, and then everyone just jumps, they're just ready, put on the suit and you jump and do the service. So it's something like that. You always have to be ready, switched on. It's like being in the army. It's a very disciplined life. So in that way, one from a very early age learns the principle of submission to an authority. So a brahmachari learns how to submit to the guru, or in our context to the temple authorities and or the ashram leader. In this way, they learn the principle of submission. And they also learn how to sacrifice, because a brahmachari is not meant to have any possessions. So when I joined the ashram, when I was working, in Telstra, when I quit that job, whatever money I had, I donated it, and I closed that bank account. Half I gave to my parents, and the other half I gave it to my guru. And then joined the ashram. So and then closed the bank account. So no possessions. So a brahmachari is meant to live without any possessions. And in the ashram here, we were given one locker. Even now, all the brahmacharis have one locker. It's more or less whatever you can fit in that. That is your life. And so when I was in the ashram, I just had a laptop and a phone. These were my two possessions. I didn't have an iPad at that time. So in that way, one learns the principle of simple living, high thinking, and how to sacrifice. And then a brahmachari engages in selfless service, has to learn to do service without getting anything in return. So in this way, in the brahmachari ashram, one learns the principle of submission, sacrifice, surrender, and service to the guru, and developing Krishna consciousness, and living for the benefit of guru and society. So one learns that. So the idea is, most men will want to marry, and then the idea is they carry forward this attitude in the next phase of their life, in the Grihastha ashram. So that's why in Varnashram there's the 4 ashram: Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. So one learns these principles of submission and sacrifice from a young age, so one can carry them forward in household life. Of course, in addition to that, one also has to understand female psychology, as well as understanding the intricacies of household life, how to expertly engage in it. But that's not sufficient. One also needs to learn this part, being fixed in Krishna consciousness. And then the householder is also more or less meant to carry out their life in that spirit. So then that's why it's called Grihastha ashram. Ashram means it's a place of shelter. So ashram is just not limited. Most people think ashram means, I'm going to Mount Eliza, there's an ashram there, or I go for a Vipassana retreat, there's an ashram. Or I go to some secluded place, I have to be a monk. So it's called Grihastha ashram. So even a man and a woman, when they're together with kids, that is also an ashram if the focus of their life is to render service to Krishna. If that is the centerpiece of their life, then that house becomes an ashram. And then it's not a well anymore. So before it was described as Griya Andakupam, a deep dark well. So now that dark well transforms into an ashram where you can just walk out of it. You don't have to climb anything, you just walk out of it. Because that is an ashram where one is engaged in devotional service, where the focus is Krishna. And the Grihastha also maintains that same sacrificial spirit of sharing Krishna with others. So we can see here in a congregation, there's everyone is more or less engaged in outreach activities. There's so many bhakti vrikshas where devotees have opened their homes to other people, right? They open their homes, people can come, they invite devotees to give a talk, they facilitate that to benefit society. So in that way, then that sacrificial spirit is there. So those things are carried. So yeah, if one has gone through the brahmacharya ashram, it's well and good. But even if one hasn't, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. One can learn from other devotees, from other senior grihasthas, how to apply these principles in their grihastha ashram. And we are seeing that being done very nicely in our Melbourne congregation, under the guidance of expert grihasthas. There's some nice quotes from Prabhupada on the Grihastha ashram. So he says, I'll read you a few. This is a lecture on the 14th of July, 1971. If you cannot practice celibacy, then get yourself married. Live with your wife and live very peacefully. But be responsible, that's all. Be responsible. Don't beget children like cats and dogs. That is Grihastha ashram, that is Grihastha ashram. Grihastha ashram means to become responsible. So as I was saying earlier, household life comes with responsibility. So if one wants a wife and kids, then you have to provide. Then be a man and provide. And also be a man and show some direction as well in Krishna consciousness. Household life is very good if one is attached to Krishna's service. Otherwise, householder life is condemned, especially in this age. Letter to Sri Govinda, 29 January 1969. Another one. To live outside the family means to help the family from outside. That is more than being inside the family. But if there's an opportunity to live inside the family and become Krishna conscious, that is very nice. One should not leave such an opportunity. Lecture, April 9, 1974. So if one's household life is very favorable, one does not need to renounce that. So there's the sannyas ashram as well. So there's the 4 ashrams, vanaprastha, then sannyas. Sannyas is for very few people. It's the difference is in the practical renunciation. And not everyone can renounce the company of a woman, right? That companionship, not everyone can renounce that. So sannyas life is very rare and very difficult. With so many challenges. But if one's Grihastha ashram is very conducive, then there's no need to give that up. It is very, very favorable. If you have a nice wife and kids or husband, then you're very blessed and it is to be continued. There's no need to stop that. And if one engages in devotional service, then you're as good as sannyasis if you're engaged in preaching and or deity worships and so on and so forth. So with that, we'll end here and see if you have any questions or comments on what we discussed today.
There's this word here, sakti, is it? No, saktam, yes. Being too much attached. There's a too much attachment is distracting you from Krishna consciousness. Is that the message here we're getting, do you think? What do you think? Yeah. In the verse, it says too much attached to the family members. Saktam,
Yeah. What person too attached to household life? Due to being unable to control his senses can... Yeah, so attachment is natural. So you rightly pointed out, too much attached. So if one has kids and wife, one will naturally be attached, and one should be attached. If you're not attached to your wife, then you have a problem. There's some problem there, right? So there needs to be some love and respect and attachment. There needs to be affection in the relationship. But if one is overly attached, to the point that that's all they meditate on, and they are unable to pursue Krishna consciousness or their service, then that becomes a problem. So for example, if you're too attached to your material situation, you just want to keep increasing it at the cost of your Krishna consciousness, getting many houses or big one, or so attached to your wife that you can't even that you can't decide what's good for you in terms of bhakti, then that's a problem. So the point is overly attached. Now, some level of attachment is important and should be there, but ultimately one needs to render seva. So the main point is be more attached to Krishna and take your household life in that way. And get everyone attached to Krishna also in your family. Yeah.
Another question, do you know which yuga this pastime was taking place in? Which yuga was it? Would it have been Dwapara Yuga or even before that?
I'm not sure. Do you know, Prabhu? Satya Yuga? Yeah, Satya Yuga. There you go.
Because there's different methods of self-realization in each yuga, isn't it?
Even then they had the same problems. It's just got worse. Even then people are attached to household life.
I remember at one of the beginning, one of Jayapataka Swami's lectures, he made a comment that put these things into perspective a bit, though I don't remember the full story, but he was just saying, like, in Dwapara Yuga, the process was to renounce family life, go to the forest, but now it's Kali Yuga, and taking sannyas is forbidden, and the process is chanting Harinam Sankirtan, chanting Hare Krishna congregationally, sort of thing.
Yeah, Hare Namava, Kevalam, Kalau Nasti, Eva Nasti, Eva Gatir Anyatha. Right. In this age of Kali, there's no other means of deliverance than the chanting of Hare Krishna. And Dhritarashtra is a good example of someone who was overly attached to his family life. This came to my mind. So Dhritarashtra was a king who was blind. He was physically blind, but he was also spiritually blind. And he had 100 sons headed by Duryodhana. So this is a really good example of being overly attached. He was so attached to his sons that he could not take any good counsel. And he knew that the rightful heir of the throne is Maharaj Yudhishthir, Pandu's eldest son. And Vidur, his great advisor, gave him so much counsel. Bhishma Dev, Krishna himself, and so many others gave him so much wisdom and tried to tell him what is right. But he was so attached to his sons that he went to such great length to cause so much suffering to the Pandavas. And then, even the battle was fought because he could not correct his son out of attachment. He could not tell Duryodhana, that, hey, calm down. that he could not put his foot down. So this is an example of being overly attached, where overly attached to the point of one cannot hear the instructions, even if they are given. And then we see Ajamil, Ajamil was a person so entangled in household life. He gave up his household life. He had a nice family. A wife. He cheated on his wife with the prostitute. He had an affair with the prostitute. And then he more or less divorced his wife. That time probably the laws were not there. But he separated from his wife, and then he started living with this prostitute. So he was even by today's standards, that's pretty fallen. Even by today's standards, it's looked down upon. So he did that, and despite such a sinful life, at the end of his life, he chanted Krishna's names and he was delivered. So we can see the holy names are so powerful that by engaging in bhakti at any phase of one's life, despite one's past, there is hope. There is hope. Even for such a person, he saw the Vishnu Dutas because he chanted the holy name of the Lord in Namabhas without committing any offense. And then he was able to have the darshan of the Vishnu Dutas. And the Yama Dutas, they had to leave him alone. So we can see that that's the power of devotional service and the hope that it gives us. Thank you, Prabhu. Good question.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anything else?
Hare Krishna, Nanda Prabhu. Thank you for a nice class. You said Jive Sarubhai Nitya Krishna Das. So, how to increase our attachment to the lotus feet of Krishna, other than chanting of the holy names, the 5 angas? How more you can deeply?
Will you answer the question?
You have your realization?
Well, the main way is through the chanting of the holy names. That is the way. As I just quoted the verse before. There's no other means of deliverance than chanting of the holy names.
And service to the Guru.
And service to the Guru. So everything starts from hearing, by hearing from devotees, then sadhu sangha, associating with devotees, and bhajana kriya, engaging in service. So by engaging in service and chanting the holy names, one can make advancement. And by hearing Shastra.
Association of devotees.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes.
If you can share your experience, how you came into Krishna consciousness, how you came into Brahmacharya.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Heard the question. Thank you. How I came to Krishna consciousness? By the mercy of devotees. So I came to the temple because I was hungry. I didn't have any money. As a student, I ran out of money. So I was hungry. I thought I'd come and have a meal here. They're still doing free prasadam. I came here and I came a number of times, and then someone, finally one day, Gopal Guru, who I don't know if you remember him, he used to be here many years ago. He's in New Zealand now. He approached me, sat down with me, and he said, I've been watching you, you've been coming for some time. See, why don't you read some Bhagavad Gita? And he took me at the back in the car park. Back then that kitchen wasn't there, and that's where his car was parked, where the new kitchen is. He opened it and gave me a soft copy of the Gita. He said, read it. So I took it, I read one page, and I came back the next. I said, I can't understand anything. Take it back. He said, no, you keep the book and keep reading it. So again I tried to read, and I said, I can't go beyond one page. I just can't understand, it's too heavy. So then I disappeared for 3 years after that. For 3 years I disappeared, and then And then I was in student life, working very hard, studying. Students, they're studying and working all the time. There's nothing beyond that. So I was doing that, and I got really frustrated with that. And that was towards the end of my degree. And then I graduated. After graduation, I went to a friend's house here on Beaconsfield Parade. There I found a hard copy of the Gita. But this time I started to seek some things. I was seeking because out of frustration. Krishna says, right, in the Gita, 4 types of people approach me. Those who are desiring money, those who are distressed, the inquisitive, and those in search of knowledge. So I was in the category of the distressed. And out of distress came some inquisitiveness. Then, this time I found the Gita and I was inquisitive. And I had started already making a change, giving up meat, even before I read it. So this time I read 4 chapters without any help. And then Vrishnivamsa, you know Vrishnivamsa? He called me. He was that time he was Vijay. He wasn't initiated. And he called me and he said, I'm selling my car. Do you want to buy it? I knew him from 4 years ago, from uni. And then we didn't meet for 4 years. And then out of the blue he called me. And I said, I'm reading Prabhupada's, I'm reading this Bhagavad Gita. He said, who's the author? I said, I don't know. I'm just reading it. He said, open the book and tell me. He had already become a devotee. So I opened the book and I said, A.C. Bhaktivedanta, Swami, Prabhupada. I was so ignorant, I didn't realize it was the same book that the monk Gopal Guru had given me. So I read the book. I told him and he almost jumped out of his seat. And then the conversation changed from sale of the car to when are you coming to the temple? And then a few days later I was in Mangal Arati. A few days later or the next week. He said, he brought me straight to Mangal Arati. That was his preaching. He said, you have to come to this 4:30, it's beautiful, the curtains open, it's nothing like you've seen, it's out of this world. And I was like, okay. He said, that's well and good, but it's too early for me. I've never in my whole life, woken up at 4 a.m. And you're bringing me to a temple at 4:30. I said, I can't come from Fairfield. He said, no, you don't have to worry about that. Come and stay with me. So then he stayed here in Bhakta Bhavan the night, and then next day he took me to Mangal Arati. And then that became my routine. Every Friday I would stay with him and Kripa Siddha, and then come here for Mangal Arati. And they got me into chanting. And then 1 year later I joined the ashram. Then I stayed with them in Bhakta Bhavan for 1 year. And then I decided, I really liked Krishna consciousness. I was 21 or 22 at that time. And I thought, okay, now I had a strong desire, burning desire to really read the Shastras and to dedicate some time to understand this properly. So, and I was inspired by the devotees here who were living in the ashram back then. And then I decided I quit my job, and then I joined the ashram. So then I was here. Yeah. That's my little story. But it's all by the mercy of devotees. So I got the book from someone who wasn't a devotee, but when I went to his house, he said, take this book away. I'm doing so much pap here, just take this Bhagavad Gita away. Because I read 1 page and I liked it. I said, can I borrow it for a few days? He said, no, just take it. Then I took it. And then Vrishnivamsa called me, and then I stayed with him. Came here, I spoke with Aniruddha Prabhu, who was very happy I think I was the first brahmachari from Bhakta Bhavan. So they were a bit excited. This is the first fruit of their preaching. And yeah, this has been here. It was like that. It was good years, good time. All right, I'm going to end here. Thank you very much. Grantraj, Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvanda Maravinda Dalaya Taksham Bhagavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundaranam Kandar Bhagom Ikamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Andani Yasa Sakale Priya Priya